You bet, yeah. Yeah, sure, that's
You want that? Yeah, just make sure I get my keys.
see, right here. He's lining us up, I guess.
Where's Hugo? Dave? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a lovely day in Stearns County. Somebody upstairs likes us, or we wouldn't be here at all. We'd like to start out our little program today. I'd like to introduce to you Bishop George Speltz, the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of St. Cloud. Bishop Speltz.
Let us pause for a moment to recollect our God's presence to us. Lord God, source of every good, we gather today to dedicate to you the rich heritage of Stearns County, mindful that we have received this from you as a gift. For a century and a quarter, you have given us countless passing days and years and changing seasons in unfailing succession. For generation after generation, you have let this land be inhabited with a people of faith who have worked, prayed, and supported each other in strong community life. You have blessed them with institutions of good government, education, and religion. You have helped them to be a free people under your holy law. Thus freed, they have cultivated and developed the human and natural resources of Stearns County into a rich heritage. It is this heritage, brought together and symbolized by this spacious and beautiful Heritage Center, that we gratefully dedicate to you, O Lord, today. We praise you, Lord. We thank you. We ask you your never-failing blessing on the future, so that this heritage may be preserved and grow in a manner that gives you glory and makes for the happiness of your people. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. These things are terribly unnerving. I would like now to take the opportunity to introduce to you your United States Senator, Mr. David Durenberger, who also is a product of Stearns County. Dave?
Thank you, Eddie. I'm Bishop Speltz. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be here today, and for my own special Stearns County roots to be here. George and Isabel are here someplace. They came here long before I ever heard of Stearns County. And my oldest son, Charlie, is also here. I am the program, or someplace it says Senator Durenberger will speak during the brief program. And I don't know whether that says Senator Durenberger is supposed to speak briefly during the program or not, but I will assume that that's exactly what it means. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to celebrate part of my roots with my mother, whose parents came from Poland in 1895 and settled right next to a little church in near Delano, Minnesota. And so we went and celebrated the 100th anniversary of St. Mary's of Czestochowa. And for those of you who are Poles here, and there are quite a few of you in Stearns County, I know, you know that the St. Mary's of Czestochowa is the patron of the Polish people, and you know a lot more about the value of both our ethnic origins and, in many cases, our religious origins. At that time, I told a little story of my first visit to the Polish embassy in Washington, D.C. And of course, I thought everybody from the Eastern Bloc countries are all communists, and that certainly the ambassadors and all the rest of those people they're just all communists. And so I was terribly surprised when the ambassador's wife took us through the embassy. It showed us the embassy and spent about 20 minutes telling us about the value of the Catholic religion to saving the Polish people time after time after time. And I couldn't quite make the connection between the communists that I thought were running the political system in that country and representing it in this country and what she was saying to me. But that little message says more to you about where we all came from and what we value so highly in America than any other special message that I could deliver to you today. I guess I'm here to raise a flag representing the national government, and we, on behalf of all of the taxpayers in this country, have a little piece of what's going on here. Ruthie Neville started, as soon as I became a senator, she started beating on me to get a little grant here and a little money there and get something from here and get something from there. And then that infected the state government and Russ Fridley and the Historical Society and the Minnesota Commission on Resources, and it just went on and on and on and on. And everybody somehow was dragged into this act by Ruthie and by the board and so many other people. So I want to finish what I have to say by thanking them and thanking Hugo and Alma and thanking or blessing the memory of Jerry and the Wyrens family and the Whitney family, who have been another special part of this, and all the other people who have made it possible for all of us in Stearns County to continue the celebration of our roots. And I hope this will end up being a famous quotation from Ruthie, but one of these articles I read, Ruthie said, "You can never say, 'I have viewed the museum and can't go back,' because a museum is never finished." And I can't think of a better way to characterize the monument in effect here, which will be a growing monument to all of our roots here in Stearns County. Thank you very much.
You next, okay? Don't ever believe the senators don't stand tall. I'd like now to introduce to you Russell Fridley. Russell is the director of the State Historical Society, and they had no small part in helping us put this package together. Russ?
Bishop Speltz, Senator Durenberger, Ed Zapp, and all of the leaders of the Stearns County Historical Society, and all of you who are friends of history, to be out here on this beautiful day. Like Dave Durenberger, I caught Ed's emphasis on brevity, and he keeps stressing it. And of course, the occasion, I think, is arranged to put extreme pressure on speakers to appear and then disappear. But I'd like to just say that I've attended a great many dedications of history centers, and I mean it sincerely when I say that I think this one exceeds them all in many ways. I think among if you travel across the country and visit state, county, city historical centers, this one is going to come off extremely well in terms of its planning, the skill with which it's been put together, the leadership, and above all, the involvement. There is an ugly rumor going about that one reason the state ran into financial hardship, and that's certainly spilled over into the federal government, Dave, that it was because Ed Zapp and Ruth were tapping all the various state and federal programs. But I want to dispel that rumor. But it is an exaggeration, but I think an illustration, an apt illustration of how skillful they were in making a broad appeal so that all aspects of government, as well as you people who live here in Stearns County, have had the opportunity to contribute to it. A historical center, to me, reaches a very important day when it's open, but I think it's in the nature of history and the sense of history that these centers foster that they become even more important. So this, I think, will have a long future, functioning not only as the memory, the living memory of Stearns County, but also will pass on the tradition, the heritage, the history, the lifestyles of the various ethnic groups that make up this area, the various religious groups, and so on. So it's a tremendous achievement, I think, to reach this point, and it will become all the more invaluable in the years ahead. I do want to thank all of you who participated, contributed to it, and certainly the leadership that Ed Zapp and Ruth Neville and many others have given to this project. There was a time 25 years ago when we used to attend meetings to reorganize the Stearns County Historical Society. We always knew we had a great deal of talent in this county, but the society had trouble gelling. And that day, of course, is long gone, and I think that's a tribute to the people who lead this vigorous, vibrant County Historical Society. So I think it's all of us who should extend congratulations to them, to the county board, to the city government of Stearns County, and all of the private citizens who've made it possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. I'd like to now call on Clarence Kramer, the chair of our county commissioners. Clarence?
Make it shorter. Thank you, Eddie. Bishop Speltz, Reverend sisters, Reverend fathers, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure for me to be here representing the County Board of Stearns County. At this time, I would like to introduce to you our county board, the members. I don't know if they're all here. I see Vice Chairman Gambrino. I wonder if he'd want to raise his hand. We have Commissioner Mauer, Commissioner Torberg, and I'm not sure if Commissioner Dickhouse is here or not. He's from Melrose. I don't know if he was able to make it. But in behalf of the board, I'd like to say that back in 1977, when the county board took upon itself to set aside $500,000 of revenue sharing funds for just what we're looking at today and our dedication, we felt at that time that it was a sizable amount of money to put aside for that reason. After due time, it was certainly indicated to us that that was merely a drop in the bucket. And without the efforts of all you people from Stearns County, our Stearns County Society, our committee, who worked endlessly in every way possible, all the families who indicated a special preference, who went through special deeds and whatever to make this possible. On behalf of the Stearns County Board of Commissioners, I want to thank each and every one of you. I don't want to get into names. I could never get done today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Clarence. Well, now you're stuck with me. I told everybody that to be brief because it gives me more time. Well, you might as well pull up the chairs, grab a cup of coffee, because here we go. I've waited for this day a long time. Sure is a nice day, too. Well, you know, I've been trying to work on a speech for the last longer than a month or two, really thinking of what I was going to say, who I was going to thank, and that is an impossibility. Over the last 11 years, we've had occasion to meet with so many people and have so much encouragement along the way. I guess my wish for all of you is if you ever get involved in any kind of affair, civic function, that you can have one that's as enjoyable and as rewarding to work on as I was lucky enough to have with this project. It was just an absolute delight. I'm not going to thank anybody in particular because you all can take credit for what you're seeing today in one way or the other. and you know who you are, and you have every reason to stick your chest out and be justly proud. I meant that all right, you know. What the heck? Been a lot of work, a lot of fun, and a lot of pleasure. So today we're really kind of dedicating the beginning rather than the ending of a project. And by that I mean simply this. This is a continuing education project that we're dedicating today. You're in the middle of a 92.5-acre park. This park has got all of the promise to really become something great. We've just got to get behind and kind of push it a little bit here and a little bit there, and it'll happen. This building is 23,000 square feet of home for all of our histories. And if you don't think in Stearns County that history doesn't dovetail, I got the files to prove you wrong. Now the center is set up in such a way we hope that it can grow, because one generation's important things are a little different than the next. And we understand that. So we've tried to build the kind of a society, the kind of a facility that will allow that kind of growth. I think you'll notice that when you get inside. Basically the building is broken down into different areas. One is for staff. You have to have a place to work out of. The other one is a repository function. That's where the artifacts are sleeping and snoozing on the shelf. You'll be able to see those as you go through the museum. When you're in that area, please look but don't touch. The artifacts that are sitting there, we've got the responsibility of keeping those for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 years. So, you know, it's not just for ourselves, it's for them too. That makes it kind of neat. That ties in the future pretty well to the past. Then there's another area in there that we call the archives. You'll see that. And that's where we keep and preserve all the printed material, the letters, the writing, the oral histories. We interview people that have played a particular part in a special event, or sometimes just remembering how it used to be. Pictures, photographs, family trees, genealogy. That's the archive area, and that's over on this side. Then we have a couple galleries right just inside the door here. And those galleries are kind of for just about anything you want to use them for. They can be used for classrooms. They can be used for small exhibits. Then we got another room that we're going to eventually have touch and feel, so the smaller set can get in there and get their hands on the history, you know, and have some fun with it. A lot of times in museums you got kind of seconds and thirds, things you don't have to keep for the next 400 years, and then you can let people really find out how it's like. The difference between a beaver pelt and a mink fur, that kind of stuff. Then you have your main exhibit hall, and that's kind of a maze. Some of those exhibits in there are pretty well finished. The circus is pretty well done. The granite quarry is about half finished. There's going to be a big shed in there. And then the natural history area is just coming on. The stream's there. We've got a few stuffed animals in there to give you an idea what it's going to be like. And then there's some areas that are kind of empty yet, because those are going to be constantly done. We hope to have a reason for you to come back about every 2-3 months to see what we've done next, so that, you know, you can really use this facility time and time again. There's one person in particular today, though, that I am going to take the time out to thank, and that's our director, Ruth Neville. This dear lady has had the fortitude and the guts to put this package together while going through some pretty sad personal problems herself. And with that kind of courage at the beginning of this project, there's no doubt in my mind that this thing's just beginning and it's going to only get better. Now today there's quite a few of us here for this surge as we first go through the museum, so it might get a little tight. I would invite those of you that wanted to stroll around the park. The 2nd Minnesota Light Artillery, it's part of our group, has got a Civil War encampment up here for you to kind of check out and see how they used to live back then. They don't have any indoor plumbing, so beware of that before you go over there. You can stroll around the park. The paths wind all around and through the park. And by the way, this park is a mini cosmos of Stearns County. We have the natural wooded area over here, and way on the south end we've got the prairie grasses that we've planted. And we want to kind of get a natural arboretum. I don't know, maybe some of you have been down at Chaska. That's kind of a formal arboretum, but we want to get a kind of a natural one so that your kids can go through and find lady slippers and moccasins and all that kind of stuff in the park, see, and identify them. Okay? You can stroll around the park. When you go in the museum, the first way we're going to have is as you get in the front doors, the tour starts to the left, guys. Oh, by the way, why don't you all stand up over here? I want you to meet these people. This is my staff. Stand up here. And boy, did they hump to get this place ready. And so did the guys that were building the plaza. This thing was just finished poured last week, so I mean, we were really pushing the clock. But here we are today. Now we got just a few more little things we're going to do. I'll let you in on the secrets so that you don't have to. We're going to have a flag raising ceremony. I'm going to have Dave Durenberger raise the federal flag. And I'm going to have Russ Fridley raise the state flag. And then I'm going to raise our own little heritage flag. During that, the band is going to play the national anthem. I would ask all of you to join in and sing. Just shortly after that, I'm going to ask Mr. Wyrens and Mrs. Wyrens, who gave us the first deed to the property that you're now on. And at that time, it was pretty much of a grassland swamp. They gave us 3.5 acres, and then the city of St. Cloud gave us 2.5. They gave us a home. And out of that grew a 92.5 acre park that you're on. I'm going to have Hugo and his wife start up the fountain, and then shortly after that, my staff will go over the front door, open up the doors, and welcome you into your new museum. So with that, I'm done talking. Aren't you lucky? It wasn't as long as you thought it might be. Dave?
Get out of the way here.
That's what we want.
Just a second, I'm not ready yet. I'm so nervous. You didn't even explain about the colors, did you? Will you be quiet over there? Maybe Maple Lake.
Lest I forget and get killed, and I don't mean to, on my immediate right is my board of directors, and those people put thousands of hours in with me to put it together, and I'd just like you to give them a hand too, please. Hugo and Alma, will you give us the signal to raise that fountain, make that water work over there? Raise your hand and wave it a bit. Questions, please.
Good job. Thank you.
history. How do you feel?
50 years of it anyway, right?
Have you had a chance to visit the building yet?
No, I haven't, and I'm looking forward to doing it. And in fact, I'm looking forward to coming back also later in the summer and go through it at greater length than I'd be able to do it today. But I've seen the pictures of it and talked to Eddie and Ruth about it, and it seems to me to be everything appropriate in the way of a sort of a growing museum. They didn't try to put everything into it like a sideshow. They really tried to start with the roots and sort of build onto it. And I think that's what museums ought to be. They ought to be living, just a part of life is what a museum ought to be.
What does growing up in Stearns County mean to you on reflection?
Well, the last time I was asked that, I said pray and work, because I was brought up in the middle of the Benedictine monastery in the middle of Stearns County, and I never knew anybody who didn't pray and who didn't work. As I grew older, I found that some people also did had a few leisure time activities, and this is the home of Minnesota 13, the most famous antidote to prohibition the world's ever known. You're too young to remember that. And I guess you could still find a still around this place or two. But mainly it's a reflection of the sense of why people are put here on Earth, to put something back into it. And you wonder why a lot of people in church work, in social work, in politics, in other places come out of Stearns County. I think it's because of a commitment that is in part ethnic, a lot of Germans, of course, and some Poles and so forth, but also in large part there's a religious ethic here that isn't just Catholic, which was a lot of the origin, but a variety of other religious commitments that just teaches people that in effect you can take so much and you give back more than you take out of life. And I guess that's really what I found in growing up here was my education in Stearns County.
I guess seeing this will probably go into the historic records of the society as well. What is your message to the residents of Stearns County of the future?
Well, that they don't ever forget these kinds of roots, because America is changing, Stearns County is changing. A lot of people now are starting to think of St. Cloud as a sort of a faraway suburb of the Twin Cities, and people will live here and work in the cities and so forth, and you're getting a much larger group of people from Southeast Asia and from Spanish-speaking lands, and a wider variety of people are going to be Stearns County residents in the future than the Northern European origins of this county. And so there is a temptation to sort of forget how it all started and forget, in effect, where our values, our present-day values, came from. And, I think history and a museum like this is incredibly important to continue to remind us that America is not just a constitution, it's not just a Congress or laws that people pass, but it is there are 100 basic years of value setting particularly in the 18th century, when a lot of people came to this part of the state, that has set the tone that will always be American. It'll always make it possible for us to accept refugees from other countries. It'll always enable us to be tolerant of people who are different from us. And those values are not, they weren't created today, and they weren't created by law. They were inculcated into the people that came from other countries in the 19th century, and so it's absolutely essential part of everyone's education that we use a facility like this and a heritage like we have here in Stearns County to remind us of that fact.
Well, I thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Rolled the van over a couple times.
Elevations through here.
I was missing one. Now
There's a lot of unusual words. You got what? You gotta have some opposition. The idea was mobility. They get loaded up to it was like a two-wheel wagon that they. Unload it, whether you can do it or not, right? And the bombs bursting in air and it went off. We couldn't hear that.
Were you waiting to? The band's supposed to start after you shot.
You're gonna stick around a little bit. Put a load of powder in the winter time for maybe. From that Civil War era when we were using weapons, this is where the term infantry being panicked about. We put a dozen guns on
Marcus wanted to walk back.
across the area. They would literally eat infantry up and coming across the field.
I hope, John, did you get a shot of us from across the pond? I hope you edited that. Hey, what did you have to go across?
No, I'm going to get it in your